Hello and welcome to the channel. I thought I'd bring you this little baseline Zwift base camp test that I did. This is actually the sprint test. I'd actually done this sprint test before. At the time that I did it, I wasn't feeling well. I had been going through some issues with my chest. I was having some chest pains right in the center of my chest. And back then, when I first did this test, I had decided that I wasn't going to do it. I was just trying to do it just to get it done. Was just trying to complete all of the baseline activities so that I can get that credit for it. At the time, like I said, I was struggling with some chest pain the first time I did it, and I was trying to back off all of my high paced or anything that was exerting any kind of stress on me just to try and get over that. I'd had a long year. I'd been doing those community races, and those community races required you to do 5 races a week, which I thought was a little bit on the excessive side, especially it, there were going to be 35 of them. Now you only needed to do 7 of them to get the badge, but 5 races a week was, especially towards the end of the year when I had been going all year. I actually been going for more than a year, doing these Zwift races, in real life races. I've been doing triathlons, track and field events, master swimming events. So I've been doing stuff all year. At the end of my triathlon season, I actually did 2 more extra races. So I had been going for a while. And then to get into those community races was just a lot. And the community races were happening at the same time that they were doing the what was it, the Tour of Zwift or Tour Watopia, I believe it was. And even when I was doing those, I would end up racing those. So I was doing like 6 or 7 races a week for a little while, and it got really too much, and I was worried about the chest pains, so that's why I had decided that, hey, I'm just want to get through this base camp stuff, get them all done, sign them off. I'm not worried about any of the testing or the workout levels. I'm gonna dial them all back down. I actually took my FTP and dialed that down a lot just so that these workouts and the prompts that they were giving me were a lot lower wattage than I needed to put out just to get through them, because I felt like I was struggling, and I just had a lot of fatigue in my body from a long year. Um, just from doing the community races, my my score or my fitness level score on Training Peaks actually went back up. It was starting to come down. I had a high of this year, an all-time high of a score of 105, and I was actually looking forward to all that stuff coming down because of how much fatigue I had in my body. And I actually, because of what the community races, brought it right back up to 105. And I knew I was going to be in trouble if I didn't get that number back down. So, not feeling well, in whatever the issue was going on with my chest pains. I think it might have been because of a sprint that I had did with one of my buddies on Zwift, Faco, and we do a sprint sessions on Mondays at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. If you ever want to practice your sprints, it's called cheesecake maple syrup. If you ever want to practice your sprints, that's a perfect place to do those. If you can get into that group ride where we do anywhere from between 5 to 6 sprints a session over about an hour period. But yeah, I got into a long sprint with him. It was really long, and I had to fight. tooth and nail just to catch him. And I think I might have tweaked my ribs again in that sprint. I did the same thing last year, and I had told my doctor about it last year. He said, "Oh, you just probably bruised your ribs, tweaked your ribs. It's I don't think it's an issue with your heart or anything like that." So I thought maybe I did the same thing. So I just wanted to chill. I backed everything down, all my workouts, any workout that I felt like I needed to do, I was going to do it at like 50%, which is the reason why I backed my FTP down. And I was just trying to get through it. So I had originally did this during that time period. And when I did it, I wasn't happy with this number. I had scored like a 389. You could see that my previous best was 1345. So to do a 389 was probably good for me at the time because I was just trying to tone everything down. So at that point in time, I was just going to leave it at such. But after a while, I started feeling better. The chest pains are gone away. So it probably was my ribs. But I was still dealing with a lot of fatigue and my legs were just drained. And I just wanted to get through all the stuff that I felt like I needed to get through and finish it up at that. So this test came back around again. Well, it didn't come back around again. It came back around as a group ride, and I wanted to do it as a group ride. And I was feeling better, and I thought I was like, okay, let me get on the bike and see how I feel. And immediately getting into this event, I can tell that whatever was going on with my heart was still there. Here you can see I'm only doing 140 watts and my heart rate's at 146, 147. My heart rate should not be that high at this power level. I should be easily pedaling through this, but my heart rate's back up again. And that's what I had been dealing with for a couple of weeks. Even the races that I did where I was just going to pedal through them to get the credit, my heart rate just seemed elevated. Even though I didn't have that chest pain, which was right in the center of my chest, I my heart rate was not cooperating. Just any little efforts was putting my heart rate up there. There are a couple of times I even was swimming and I felt dizzy in the pool. I think that was mostly due to the fact that I forgot to put my earplugs in a couple of times, and my ears are sensitive to cold water, and that's one of the things that I do in triathlon. When I'm in cold water, I make sure I have my earplugs in, or else I will get dizzy. So I was attributing that to that and not really paying too much because I generally felt like I was better and I was getting better. But this second time around in this event was telling me that, something's not right. So I have an appointment with my doctor. My doctor's going to check things out. I'm not too worried about that. So that's in the works. But I could tell that even that little wattage increase shot my heart rate up to 154. Now my max heart rate is about 196, anywhere from between 190 and 196. I haven't done 196 in a long time, but I've always used that as my top. But any races that I've done recently or in the past or over this year, I think my max is right around about 190, maybe 192 that I've done in a race. But here, just that little bit of effort shot my heart rate up into 164. So I knew something was wrong because normally I can recover fast. I can get my heart rate up, and then just a little bit of backing off on the effort would send it back down. And looking at this, I'm at 115 watts and my heart rate's still at 158. That's not good. So at this point, I'm sweating and just these little bit of efforts just don't seem right to me with my heart rate. I don't know if it's because of my heart rate monitor or not. I have one of those arm wristband or armband heart rate monitors. I used to have a chest monitor, and that died on me like last year sometime. So I bought the arm one. I like the arm one better because I didn't have to put that cold, wet strap on my chest every day. And the arm one just seemed to go up and didn't bother me as much. The only thing I don't like about the armband is I normally put it on my forearm, and when I go to sprint, because I tense that muscle up, that forearm muscle up when I'm pulling on my bars, sometimes it won't read my heart rate correctly because now it's trying to get through a tensed up hard muscle or something like that. So it seems to not want to, not that it's not recording, it just don't seem to be accurate when I'm doing that pull. But once I get out of the sprint or done with the sprint and relax it, it'll start reading right, and then you'll see my heart rate take a jump to go up. You'll actually see it in this test that I'm doing. So at this point, I'm doing all this, and I'm thinking the whole time I'm thinking, okay, how am I going to do? I want to sprint all three. I didn't think I was going to sprint all three. I thought I was just going to do one sprint and then call it a day, just to see what my sprint level was. I was going to do the very last sprint. There's three of them in here. I was going to do the very last one, but then I said, well, let me do the first one, try and get that over with, get it over with and done, and then see how I feel after that, and then see if I want to do the last two or just do the one and then just pedal out the rest of the test. So what's coming up, um, at this point, my heart rate's still up there. It's at 154. Now, normally, 154 would not bother me. 154 would actually be low for me in a race. But for some reason, my breathing's elevated along with my heart rate, and I know I need to get things checked out. Maybe I just need to just chill a lot more and just let my fitness level and my fitness score and everything just come way down. But I wanted to do this test. I wanted to see what I can actually, how much power I can actually push out. So this was going to be a test for that. So I'm getting set up for this. And if you'll notice my cadence is around about 87. What I'm going to do is right before that arch, I'm going to spin my cadence up. Now coming from 135 watts, I should be able to easily spin that cadence up to get over the top of the gear that I need for this sprint. So as it's coming up, I start to spin up. You see my cadence go up, and it takes a little bit of time for Zwift to catch up to me, and then boom, there goes my a power surge. But I could not hold that power up there for nothing. I should be able to easily hold 15 seconds over 1200 watts, over 1300 watts. I'm not going to say easy, but I should be able to do that in that time frame and not feel like I'm a die. And my power dropped off like off the cliff way quicker than it normally would for me in a sprint. So I know that something's up. Something's up. You can see my heart rate slowly going up. That's because it's going up because now my muscles no longer tensed on my forearm. And then you see it go up to 178. For that amount of time that I was sprinting, my heart rate should not go that high. Something's up. I got to get it figured out. Now, I don't know. I, I wouldn't really say that I was sick, but I probably was sick. I don't know. I mean, I have no other symptoms. The chest pains had gone away. Yeah, I was tired. I was tired. Maybe it's just been a long, long year, and my body's just telling me that it's time to turn it down or to turn it off completely. Um, I can't really tell. I mean, I have no coughing. no aches and pains. Um, I did have a little bit of a runny nose, and it seemed like each time I do, especially these kind of sprint efforts like this, my nose would start to run a little bit. But that has been the case in the past when I had no issues sprinting or holding my power or anything like that. But for some reason, and it wasn't all the time. It wasn't all the time. Out of nowhere, my nose would start to run a little bit. I have a little bit of sniffles, and then 10 minutes later, it's gone. So at this time, I had no clue what was going on in my body. I probably should have went and did a COVID test, but I didn't feel like I was having any of the normal symptoms that I thought you would get during COVID. No loss in appetite, no loss in taste. Um, it wasn't. I mean, I get up in the morning and it wasn't like I felt great. It was like, okay, depending on how much sleep I got, I'd hop up and take my shower and get dressed and head to work, and everything would be fine. But for some reason, it didn't feel like my heart rate was just doing the things it should be doing when I needed to do it. Now, in this case, my heart rate's at 150 and my watch at 135. To tell you the truth, I was trying to figure out if that was normal for me or not. I don't feel like at that wattage it was normal. There was a time when I was doing the community races when I had decided, okay, I'm not going to race these anymore, but I still want to pedal through them just to complete them. Now I knew I wasn't going to finish in the overall standings of that series because in the general classification or the GC because I had missed a race very early on. Don't know how I missed it, but I ended up missing one race. So I knew even if I completed it, I was going to be one race short, which would have left me out of the overall standings. So, but I still wanted to complete every race. I mean, up until the point I started to slow it down, I had never finished off the podium in any of those races. So in about, I'm going to say 25 or 26 races, I had never finished off the podium. So I wanted to keep that streak going, even though I was just pedaling through most of my races. I knew I didn't want to do any more of the primetime races because if I did one of the primetime races, I would have to work my butt off in those. And in a couple of those races, I never really got dropped, but I kind of went pop right at the end, just trying to get to the sprint finish and just completely blew up. And I've always considered blowing up a good thing. That meant I pushed myself beyond my limit to where I just shut down from it. But it happened in a couple of those races, and I knew I just didn't have that kind of effort in me, and not feeling well and all this stuff. I just didn't want to do that, so I left the primetime races alone and found some sparsely attended races and just did those where I was just pedaling through. But I was coming up on this second sprint, and my heart rate was still up there, and I just didn't know if I really wanted to sprint this one. I was trying to decide. I was like, okay, I got two more of these left. Maybe you should just spin out on them and not put too much effort in them and just kind of get through them. But then the thought of my head was, I think I got a little bit more in me. I want to see what I could do. I want to test myself. And I had set myself up to be able to sprint this. Now, when you're in ERG mode, you do not have to shift in these events. You should already have yourself set in your sprint gear, and you will be able to spin through this effort without too much effort. But my heart rate's out of whack, so I'm still putting in effort. But I have myself in the gear that's not quite my sprint gear because I don't think I have that in me, but I'm in the gear right next to it. So I know I should be able to just go 3 seconds before I hit that arch and be able to spin up and then get into my sprint. But in this one, I don't feel like I'm completely recovered yet. You can see my heart rate going up just thinking about it. So I've decided that I'm just going to stay in the seat. I'm not going to stand up at all. I'm going to spin up and I'm going to see what I can do in the seated position just to get through this one. Not too much effort. I don't think I'm being able to hold it that long. Got the power up. It's up. I get 1,000 watts. I'm happy with that. But you can see it's just gonna fall right off a cliff, and then boom, I'm done with that little sprint. You can see my heart rate's only at 156, but then it's going to bounce up a little bit because it's not sensing my it's actually sensing my heart rate now, actually. And 175, 176, 177, 178. That's high. That's really high for me off the little bit of effort that I did for that short amount of time. My heart rate should not spike up that much. But that's what's going on with me. I got to get it figured out. Um, I'm doing everything I can to get that heart rate back down. I'm doing my trick where I breathe through my nose into my abdomen and let my abdomen expand, and then slowly exhale. And that's how I get my breathing under control. I get more air into my abdomens, which gets more oxygen to the big muscles, to the big quads, and to the glutes when you breathe into your abdomen and get more air down in there. But as you can see, I'm still struggling with my heart rate, and I know I need to get things figured out. Once I get to my doctors, I'll be happy to find out exactly what's going on with me. Or if I actually did have COVID or something like that in the past, and then this is the remnants from it. I don't know. I don't know. I got to get it figured out. The only problem with this is unless I'm on this bike doing this activity or swimming or something like that, I feel great. I don't feel like I've had any illness or that I'm ill now. So that's what's perplexing for me. But I'll figure it out. I know when I did that first test, I did that test on trying to remember what day I did that test. When I did the first test, first time I did it on November 22nd. I'm doing this test on December 1st. So it's been about a week since I did that last one. I haven't been riding much at all. I've limited myself to maybe riding and riding slow, maybe twice a week, and I've limited my swimming also to just twice a week. Now I used to ride five times, maybe 6 times a week, and I would swim anywhere from between 3 to 4 times a week. Um, Sometimes maybe five, but that's on the rare occasion. But for the most part, that's all I was doing. I haven't been running much at all. I need to probably get back to running, but I haven't been running much at all. I had kind of turned that off back in October, and just because I had been doing all the Zwift stuff. So I just haven't been running much at all. So I need to get back to my running. But trying to get my heart rate down, and it's just not coming down to where it should be. At 135 watts, my heart rate should probably be 20, maybe 30 beats lower than it is now. It should be much lower than that, but at some point, I'll figure out what's going on. But I'm trying to decide on what I'm going to do on this last sprint, whether I'm just going to can it and just spin through it, or actually do that last sprint. Now, I've actually do have a video on YouTube of how I sprint on Zwift. And I put a lot of effort into my sprints. And show you a little bit of that. I tend to tug on my handlebars at the same cadence that I do left, right with my feet so that I can get more power to it. I put a lot of stress on my handlebars. As you can see, I'm on a tri bike and I'm on my drops when I'm pulling on it. I'm surprised I haven't snapped those bars off the bike yet because of how much stress I put on them. I know they're not made, probably not made to take that kind of stress, but hey, that's what I do. That's how I sprint. That's how I get more power. I mean, just sitting on your seat and pedaling through it, I probably can get um, at my max probably about anywhere from between 1250 to 1300 watts just staying on my seat if I'm in good shape and not coming out of too much stress. But I have maxed out at 1500 and something watts. And actually, during that sprint test is when I did that. I've done it maybe a couple of times since that, but it was during that my sprint session that I had just showed that I had scored. I had went over 1500 watts for the first time. So I knew I wasn't going to be able to do that kind of power now. I just didn't have that in me, or just don't think I had that in me. But I was coming up to this last sprint, and I decided, yes, I'm going to do the sprint. I'm going to put as much as I can into it just to see what I can get. I'm going to try and hold it longer than 10 seconds. I hadn't been able to do that up until now. I did it a little bit on that seated sprint, but that's a seated sprint. Standing is a totally different animal. So I had decided I'm going to sprint and I'm going to try and hold it longer for this one and see what I can get, see how much power I can get, even though, I wasn't feeling well. So 20, 20 seconds going in, my heart rate's already at 169 because I'm thinking about what I need to do for the sprint, and that always elevates my heart rate. So I'm at 172 with 10 seconds to go, so my heart rate is already up there. And at around about 3 to 4 seconds, I started spinning to get it up there. And I was actually surprised by what popped up there. 1591, almost 1600 watts. That was a serious spike. Now I'm not able to hold it as long as I would normally be able to hold it, but that was high. That surprised me. Was not ready for that. Now look at my heart rate, 164, and watch it go. Watch it go. It's gonna get up there. 182, 185, 187, 188. That is very high for a 10-second sprint. 10-second sprint, and my heart rate went up to 188. That's crazy. That's crazy. At this point, I'm dying. I'm breathing so hard that is nuts. But I actually had stopped pedaling for a second, but then had remembered that it was going to switch back to ER mode, and if I didn't want to get into the spiral of death, I needed to start pedaling again. So I started pedaling to get my speed, my cadence back up, so that it wouldn't send me into the spiral of death in ERG mode. So even though I didn't want to pedal, I just wanted to stop at that period. I got back into it. So now it's all about just trying to get through this last part. And I was not surprised, somewhat surprised by it, but not surprised by it. When I got my next test score, it was my 10 seconds was 12:16. Still not at my best of 13:45. My peak power is actually the highest power I had ever produced on Zwift. 1591 was the highest power I had ever produced on Zwift. But sustaining that power, I have no ability to sustain the power. at what fitness level that I am at this point in time. So I'm not going to say I'm disappointed with these results. These are the results that I can produce at this time that I'm doing this test. I'm not going to do it again. Do not plan on doing it again. I do plan on finishing out this baseline series. I'm going to keep my FTP turned down. I'm not going to turn it back up. I'm probably just going to keep it turned down until I'm feeling better and back into training mode. I'm going to leave it at what it's at. And then once my training mode kicks back in for triathlon season next year, then I'll bring it back up close to what it should be. I think I turned it down. I think it might have been at 320 when I turned it down. I think I turned it down all the way to 225 or something like that. Because I want to do these workouts on the baseline test, but I don't want to put a lot of effort in them just to check this out. I know this isn't going to be a legitimate baseline for me. I know where I should be at. I know what my level should be at, and then I'll wait until I'm back into training mode before I get back into that. Hopefully, I'll be okay with whatever going on with my heart rate at that point in time. Figure out the things that are going on and be back up to normal. Get back up to my normal pacing. Um, I was actually enjoying all the suffering that I went through this year to get my biking, especially in triathlons, up to where I have it. I'm one. I had got it up to being one of the top riders in the small triathlons that I do. My only issue was I found out that I had been riding on bad bearings all year. I'd been trying to figure that out for since the first time it happened was the very last race of last year. All of a sudden, it'll feel like something is binding on the bike. I thought I had it figured out going into the first of the year, and turned out I didn't figure it out. And then I tried something else, and then I tried something else, and then I tried something else because it was weird because I thought at one point I thought it might have been the crank. Um, I thought it might have been the rear wheel. And then I thought it might have been the front wheel. And it was happening on different wheel setups that I had. And so I thought for sure that it had to be something to do with the crank. And it turned out to be my bearings on three wheels. Not just one, not two, but three wheels. I have a set of FFWD wheels, fast forward wheels, and I have a 50 millimeter front and an 88 millimeter back, and I have a full disc. And I thought it was the rear because it seemed like it happened on one when it didn't happen on the other. And as it turns out, it was all three wheels. All three wheels had bad bearings. And I didn't figure that out until after my last race of the season. So I bought new bearings, put new bearings in there, and those hopefully that will cure my issues and have me going a bit faster on my bike out on the road in the real life. But until then, um, I'm just going to take it easy on Zwift, not push too much, not push too hard, getting my Zwift stuff done. Um, just not going to get into many of the Z Racing Series races at all. Try not to race at all until maybe January sometime when I really get back and get ready to start training again. So for the most part, just you know, maybe do some slow group rides. Um, Once the tour stuff starts up again, maybe just pedal through those just to get the credit for them, but not do any racing or anything like that. So coming up here to the finish, and you can see my spikes there in 1:15:91 for max power. That's a pretty good peak. But you can see that they're just spikes. There's no width to those spikes. They're kind of narrow. They shouldn't be that narrow when I sprint. I should be able to sprint a lot longer than that for a longer period. I was at one point sprinting, I'm not going to say with ease, but I was able to do 500-meter sprints. And in a couple occasions, 600 meters. I think my longest one that I did was 650 meters, and um, and was actually able to get through it and actually go cross the arch, still on the gas for 650 meters. But that was actually a while ago. Um, it depends on the race and how much effort I've had to put into the race. If there are no heavy hitters in there that I had to either chase down or anything like that, then especially if people let me race. And that's a lot of that's mistakes that a lot of riders do, is they will let me rest going into the sprint. And if you do that, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. Even if you get the jump on me, for the most part, I can still track you down. May not be easy, but I can still track most riders down. There are a few sprinters out there that if I let them get enough of a jump on me, they will get me. Faku is one of those sprinters. He's developed a really good sprint now, and he can hold the power, tend to hold the power a long ways. And there are a couple of other guys out there that are really good sprinters. But for the most part, I tend to go unchallenged in my sprint. Now, if it's a hilly course and the guys really push enough on the hilly course, they can get me because then my legs are done. Actually, in one of the community races that I did at prime time, there was a guy who specifically attacked towards the end of the race just because he knew I was gonna get if he waited that he wasn't gonna get me in the sprint. And he did enough to toast my legs going into that sprint. And I was chasing him down. I was catching him towards the end, but I just didn't have enough to get to him because of that case, because of the way he sprinted. So you need to attack sprinters. You need to attack their legs if you want to get them out. You need to check on Zwift Power to see who your sprinters are and what kind of sprint that they have, and make sure when you're looking at it that they're able to do that in a race. It's different to do it in a group ride where you're not riding hard and then you go into a sprint or a sustained sprint. If you see them doing that in races, and I get called out a lot for that in races, that they think that I should not be able to produce that kind of power. And I'm like, I can because I know how and I know what to do. And I have my bike set up. I have my gearing. I have specific gearing that's made to allow me to save my legs to be able to use my sprint power. And sprint power is all about cadence and being in the right gear. It's as simple as that. Cadence and being in the right gear. Gotta learn that. If you don't take the time to learn that, then you're doing yourself an injustice. So I'm going to see if I can speed this up to where my stats are, and maybe I'll get there at some point. And let's stop this bike. Come on, rolling over to there. That little flywheel never wants to stop. 1342, 346. Oh, I know those numbers are going to be wrong. But 1342 for 10 seconds, for 5 seconds, when my best is 1481. Not too far off. Not too bad for not feeling well and not being being in as good a shape to go into this as I feel I should be. Um, I'll take those 3 spikes. They should have been better than that. Should have been able to hold my power a little longer than that. It should have been thicker, but 1591 is my max power. And we'll click this over and see what my max heart rate was. Gonna take a picture right quick. Gotta take a picture. This is worth taking a picture for, especially the way I felt. But trying to move this over and see what this first one was. And for some reason, this thing doesn't line up right. 1470. 1470 is pretty good for first effort. But again, it's just a spike. I'm not holding the power. Can't hold the power. This one, I know this one was right around about 1000. But Zwift got to get his act together. This thing is just isn't lining up to where it should be. So it's kind of hard to figure out where you need to put it to see the high peak on that. And just skip it. So we'll go over the critical power, and you can see that for some reason it's because I was coming from that low wattage and going right into free mode to jump on the power. Normally you can't do that in the race because you already have some preloaded tension on there that you can't get to. But in this aspect, coming from that low wattage, I'm able to jump on that really quickly. So that's my ride. That's my sprint session. I wanted to get that out there, put this on YouTube just to share my thoughts on this race. And not sure when the next time I'll get a video onto YouTube, but hopefully at some point it'll be sooner than later. So that's all I got for now. Thanks a lot. Thanks for watching my video, and I'll see you the next time.